Hi guys, Reform UK are either delusional or they hope that their supporters and eventually the public are. Because time and time again they put out statements that are not based in reality. Or they argue points that make no sense knowing that they will receive little or no pushback. At a Reform UK rally this week, the nonsensical thinking continued, this time from a guy cosplaying as a demagogue, Yusef, the party's chairman. Now he gives an example here of what a Nigel Farage government would look like and what its priorities would be right from day one. Have a listen.
I want you to take a moment to visualize what a triumphant day it will be when in just a few years' time, Prime Minister Nigel Farage arrives at number 10 Downing Street. In his first act as Prime Minister, he will pick up the phone to the First Sea Lord and order His Majesty's Royal Navy to see to it that not a single unauthorised vessel crossing the English Channel makes it to the shores of the United Kingdom. Now, I know it's procedure to go via the Minister of Defence, but I think Nigel should make that call himself, don't you? Our Navy will embark on a humanitarian mission to pick up those attempting this hazardous journey, ensuring nobody is harmed and that they will be taken back to France for their own safety.
Okay. Oh my goodness, these people are delusional, truly delusional. There's so much to respond to here. So first of all, Nigel Farage will call the First Sea Lord and demand that he stop the boats. Okay, first of all, the Royal Navy doesn't have enough vessels to stop the boats. Even if they could do that, they don't have enough vessels. Even if they were allowed to do that, they don't have enough personnel and they don't have enough ships. But let's say for the sake of argument they do. I've mentioned this before. This would be breaking international law. This would be going against UN conventions. And who would suffer the consequences? Who would be facing a trial? Whose head would be on the chopping block if that were to take place? Well, it would be members of the military. It would not be Nigel Farage, in the same way as Priti Patel and Suella Braverman tried to go down this road as well. They were trying to strong-arm, for example, the Royal Navy to take a stronger approach to the crossings. And I said at the time, they are the people who would suffer the consequences if they were breaking international law. The government minister would just resign and go off and retire and have a wonderful life. But it'd be the military personnel who would be facing tribunals or court-martials or whatever. They would be the ones in serious trouble, not the government minister. So they're not going to break international law. They're not going to go against UN conventions. So it's nonsense thinking. So once again, even if you had enough ships, which the Royal Navy obviously don't have, they're not going to do it, and it wouldn't be practical. And also, he mentioned here, once again, we just pick people up and dump them in France. Well, what if France says no? What if France says, no, you're not allowed to dock? Then what are you going to do? Invade France? Go to war with a member of the European Union? Is that what Nigel Farage's government would do? And notice, he mentioned as well, the priority would be to call the First Sea Lord, not to deal with the cost of living crisis, not to deal with the NHS problems, not to deal with infrastructure, not to deal with housing. No. Immigration. That's all we're going to talk about. Which leads on to the final point here about Nigel Farage becoming Prime Minister. Now, I'm not saying it's impossible. It's highly unlikely because a number of things would have to happen. The support Labour and the Conservatives have in the country would have to completely collapse. And you would have to see Reform expand its current voter base. Because at the moment they represent a radical right of UK politics. We could even say English politics, because we'll have to wait and see how well they do in Scotland and in Wales. Not even, just forget about Northern Ireland. So they represent a small section of society at the moment. So in order to overtake the Conservatives and the Labour Party, they need to appeal to the centre ground. Like if we look at 2019, Boris Johnson ran a pretty populist campaign, but it was So some of his policies were centre ground or even left wing. He was talking about building 40 new hospitals. He was talking about hiring 50,000 nurses. It was all a lie, but it was centre ground or left wing policies. It appealed to a lot of people. Now, Brexit, of course, was significant as well. It got Boris Johnson over the line. But the policies that he was pushing were pretty centrist or left wing. So if Reform UK want to win a majority, if they want to be in charge, if they want to be the biggest party and then form some sort of coalition, they need to appeal to more people than they're appealing to at the moment. But a problem for Reform that I've mentioned before is as soon as they start to do that, they're going to upset their current voter bloc. And those people have somewhere else to go. There's UKIP, there are other extreme parties. So Nigel Farage has a difficult task if he wants to get into number 10. He either needs to be part of a coalition, but then he's not going to be Prime Minister, or he has to become the biggest party in a coalition, and then he can become Prime Minister. But that would require the Conservatives joining Reform as a junior partner. But then what do the Conservatives get out of this? But once again, Farage would have to appeal to a wider base than he is at the moment. And he would have to change a lot of his policies and move away from this type of rhetoric on immigration. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot.